Welcome, everybody, to the Flowing Through SoCal video podcast. Today, we have Laurie Walsh with the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board. Thank you for joining us today, Laurie.
And thank you for having me.
You bet. It's great to have you on. I remember working with you on a certain lake, probably back in like 2013 or something like that. So it's been a little while. So tell me what you're working on now and what your current role is.
Currently I am the branch chief for the surface waters branch at the San Diego Water Board, and our branch covers wastewater regulation, stormwater regulation, and the dredge and fill program that the San Diego Water Board oversees and implements in our region.
Okay, so for our national audience, what exactly is the Regional Water Quality Control Board? And we may need to go back a little bit in time, maybe with a little start from a historical perspective, like maybe start with the structure of the boards and Clean Water Act, Port of Cologne, and maybe just give us kind of a little history lesson.
Sure. Well, water quality regulations were kind of chaotic in the early 1900s. There were outbreaks of waterborne diseases and degradation of fishing and recreational waters. And coupled with real rapid wartime industrial development and population growth, this prompted a new review of how water pollution was controlled in the state. People realized that sweeping changes were badly needed. It was recognized that water quality and water quantity decision-making needed to be coordinated. So the California legislature adopted the Water Pollution Control Act to address these changes. And it took effect around October of 1949. So around 20 years later, the State Water Resources Control Board was created. And the state board was given the broad authority and responsibility to protect water quality, to balance the competing demands on water resources, and attempt to resolve really decade-long water disputes. In addition to the state board development, there were 9 regional boards that were also created because the legislature realized that California's water pollution problems were not only regional, but they were dependent on the topography, precipitation, and population differences through up and down the state, as well as the differences in recreational, agricultural, industrial development, all of which vary very much from region to region up and down the state of California. So the regional boards oversee and enforce the state's pollution abatement program. Regions do not oversee water rights. That is strictly a state board matter. So shortly after the state board and the 9 regional boards were formed, California recognized that some changes were needed to the existing water laws, and they enacted the Port of Cologne Water Quality Control Act in 1970. And that's really the cornerstone of today's water protection efforts in California.
So that predates the Clean Water Act.
Absolutely does. Port of Cologne was recognized as one of the nation's strongest pieces of anti-pollution legislation. And the new state law was so influential that congressional authors used sections of the Port of Cologne as the basis for the federal Clean Water Act and its amendments in 1972. So that was known as the Clean Water Act, the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. And so with these amendments, the Clean Water Act now shined a light on the fact that planning was to become more of a critical focus, and it was planning to protect receiving water beneficial uses.
Okay, so quickly on the beneficial uses, when were those established then on this timeline?
Right. So beneficial uses were established around 1972, and it was based on a state water board use survey of water resources throughout all of the basins in the state. And there's 2 types of beneficial uses: existing beneficial uses and potential beneficial uses. So an An existing beneficial use was established by demonstrating that the use has actually occurred in the water body, and it occurred since 1975. So as the first factor, or that the water quality and the quantity is suitable to allow the use to be obtained. So that's for an existing use. Now, if the beneficial use is designated as potential, there's a variety of reasons. One, that the plans are proposed to put the water to a future use. The potential exists to put the water to a future use. The public desires to put the water to a future use. The water is potentially suitable for municipal or domestic supply, or the regional board has designated a beneficial use as a regional water quality goal. So you can see there's quite a few more factors to list a beneficial use as potential. And I think this all goes back to the conservatism that the Clean Water Act included.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if we go back to the Clean Water Act, it also shined a light on the fact that the planning should consider all significant factors that affect water quality. And it also included an enforcement component, because water quality control plans to protect beneficial uses would do little good if they couldn't be enforced.
Mhm. Mhm. So that all under again under Porter Cologne. So it's interesting. Once again, California, right, leads the way, and then the rest of the country sort of tends to follow. Okay,
Yeah.
so with all of this, then, so what is the reach? So at each there's 9 regional boards, and they're sort of suited or situated across the state. So what does the regional board do then exactly?
Right. So the regional board is the regulatory agency that issues the waste discharge permits to ensure that the quality of the state's rivers, lakes, wetlands, oceans, and our groundwater are protected to support those beneficial uses. And the San Diego Water Board has a practical vision and our regional basin plan, which help guide our program work to achieve our mission. And simply said, our work ensures that waters are safe to swim, fish and shellfish are safe to eat, and ecosystems are healthy. The San Diego Water Board, like you mentioned, is one of 9 regional boards, all under the State Water Resources Control Board, headquartered in Sacramento. So the State Water Board focuses on statewide pollutant control matters and water rights, where the regional boards really focus on the region specific priorities.
Right, yeah, because each region's a little different because they represent different parts of the state, right? You got arid areas and more wet and different weather patterns. So it makes sense to me that that's how you'd want to sort of divide that out. I want to go back just kind of quickly on this beneficial uses that you were discussing. So each water body has a beneficial use, like municipal supply or Rec 1, Rec 2, agricultural, right? There's
Correct.
all these different types, and there's a table, I believe, and maybe we can put that up. And in chapter 3 of the basin plan, those beneficial uses are tied to water quality objectives. So for example, the bacteria standards are different for a lagoon with a Rec 2 designation versus a lagoon where shellfish are being harvested and being consumed by humans. So I would imagine that in the latter situation, there's probably a lower limit for shellfish harvesting for a bacteria limit or bacteria water quality objective.
Yes, you're correct. So in your example of the lagoon with, you called it Rec 2, so that's non-contact recreation beneficial use. And it has a fecal coliform water quality objective of 2,000 organisms per 100 milliliters. And if we compare that to a lagoon with shellfish harvesting as a beneficial use, there's a total coliform water quality objective of 70
Hmm.
organisms per 100 ml. So even though these indicators are different, it does show a much lower magnitude of water quality objective when you change the beneficial use you're seeking to protect. And as you mentioned, each receiving water has its specific list of beneficial uses going back to that 1972 use survey that the state board conducted for all water bodies throughout the state of California.
Right. And it sounds like, based on what you were saying a couple of minutes ago, that could change as if it's a potential future use, right? So things could shift
Correct.
around. Okay.
That's correct. And most recently, the San Diego Water Board just added tribal beneficial uses to its receiving waters.
Okay. All right.
Those were not identified in 1972, but we recently added those to our basin plan.
Which is a living document, right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now let's shift back to the state board for just a second. So the state board has a strategic plan. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So the State Water Board strategic plan focuses statewide work in three major categories: protecting public health by ensuring reliable access to safe, affordable drinking water and sanitation; increasing statewide water resiliency in the face of climate change by expanding and integrating California's water supply portfolio; and really strengthening our internal capacity and our systems to accomplish its mission. And to do that strategically, transparently, equitably, and efficiently.
Living in Southern California, I can certainly attest to that. We're seeing larger swings in weather patterns, periods of drought, and then intense rain events, right?
Right.
Water supply, at least in the industry that I'm in, water supply is becoming really front and center. And I'm starting to see this clear nexus between surface water, groundwater, potable water, and advanced treated water, like, Project Pure, for example, in San Diego. And I know Black and Veatch is involved with some of the projects that are in your region that are along these lines. So how is the regional board involved with these type of projects?
Right. So the San Diego Water Board is involved as the agency responsible for issuing the discharge permits for these projects. We also support grant funding for these projects, and we try to include in our permits, developing creative solutions to get more of these projects built in our region. And as you mentioned, a key project in our region is the Pure Water Project that the city of San Diego is conducting. And that is a comprehensive water reuse program to reduce the region's reliance on imported water. And
Right. Okay.
it seeks to provide at least a third of San Diego's water supply locally by the end of 2035. The Pure Water Program, it's going to implement advanced treatment of municipal wastewater to produce highly treated recycled water that will be used to augment our drinking water reservoirs. And that really hits the direct goal of creating a local sustainable source of potable water, both in the regional board's practical vision and the statewide water plan. We'll issue the NPDES permit in conjunction with US EPA that will set the technology-based standards for the wastewater treatment plants producing that advanced treated recycled water. Ultimately, the project will produce 83 million gallons a day of highly treated recycled water for potable reuse. And that is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
The city's currently constructing the treatment facilities. The Pure Water Program will create that resilient and sustainable local source of water. And it will also systematically reduce the discharge flows from the Point Loma ocean outfall. And so it's going to also trigger a reduction in pollutant loading to the ocean. So it's really a great project for the San Diego region to experience.
Yeah, certainly helping with that Point Loma discharge permit. I think every 5 years we go through the cycle again of re-upping that permit, and I know it's a bumpy road every time. So that this should help reduce those flows and maybe help streamline that permitting process. So along the lines of the stormwater capture and reuse, um, what's what is the board doing with respect to that? I mean, maybe at the state level.
Right. So California is really streamlining its water capture projects and trying to take advantage of capturing its storms to boost its water supplies. There's several large scale projects going on throughout the state. California is focusing on groundwater recharge projects where that makes sense. Sometimes in San Diego region, we don't have the groundwater basins as much as other areas throughout the state of California. So about 45 billion gallons, that's how much water California is either permitted or is working on permits for groundwater recharge projects. And that's enough to cover 1.3 million Californians' yearly usage. So that's very substantial. The state funded a project, the Santa Anita Dam, which captures 95% of the stormwater runoff and directed it to groundwater recharge facilities in the San Gabriel River watershed. And the state of California also has given away a lot of money through grants, nearly $1 billion statewide to capture more water, either through recharging recycled water or other stormwater capture projects. And that's adding about 28 billion gallons to the state's water supplies every year. And ultimately, California invested more than $160 million to capture, store, and reuse stormwater in Los Angeles County, which really bolstered their stormwater infrastructure. And I think these are some of the projects, in addition to the City of San Diego's Pure Water project down here in San Diego, that shows the regional boards and the state boards' commitments to meeting their strategic plan goals and the governor's goals in the California water supply strategy.
Absolutely. It's all very, very exciting stuff. I feel very fortunate to be, in California as part of this time right now. I think it's a really, really interesting time. You did talk a little bit about infrastructure, and I wanted to shift just a little bit to some of the issues that we had in San Diego earlier in January of 2024 this year with some flooding. Since the stormwater conveyances are also habitats in some cases,
Right.
how is the regional board involved with the issues around the channels and incidental habitat establishment and emergency cleanings? Maybe kind of lay that out a little bit for us.
Yeah, sure. So the San Diego Water Board is the agency responsible for issuing waste discharge permits for activities that dredge or fill a water of the state. Channel maintenance is an activity within that occurs within the waters of the state, and it requires a permit from us, and in some cases from the U.S. Army Corps if the water is also considered a federal water.
Okay.
So the need to dredge channels to assure that its capacity to handle floodwaters became very clear during the recent storms in January of 2024. So neighborhoods in the city of San Diego experienced extreme flooding due to an inundation of the stormwater conveyance system. And there's a few reasons why those neighborhoods experienced such flooding. The way land is developed over the last 50 years really increased the amount of impervious surfaces, and that increased the amount and the velocity of runoff in areas like the city of San Diego. In particular, Choyas Creek is where those neighborhoods really got flooded very badly. And our land development practices have built neighborhoods right up and next to those channels. So there's really no room. The flood control systems are undersized because they were designed for communities that are 50, 60, 80 years ago. So they're very much undersized now, which is a legacy issue that the city of San Diego is trying to address. And they're trying to address it through really proactive land development projects. Now, channel maintenance is also an an issue, and it's very resource intensive. So the city of San Diego is funded to clean about 4 channels a year, but the city has hundreds of channels. And of course, they do
Mm,
that on a prioritization basis, but it really means that only 4 channels get cleared out under any sort of dredge or fill permit that the water board would issue, only for a year, and that's just not enough.
right.
So specifically the January 2024 flooding in San Diego, that I want to emphasize that the city of San Diego has really worked very hard to be proactive on establishing a program for that planned channel maintenance. Even though it's only 4 channels a year, they really did get out front of it and work with us to get a permit to do that channel maintenance.
Okay.
And the city started that effort a few years back now, and we issued their permit in 2021. A few other cities have these sort of what we call them programmatic channel maintenance permits, but the cities uh, goes as far to identify the mitigation areas. And that's something that's really above and beyond what some other cities have as far as programmatic channel maintenance permits. And the advantages of the city's program is that it covers a wide variety of maintenance activities, including removal of material from channels, construction of mitigation areas to make it basically a banking area,
Okay.
and covers, small repairs, like small concrete repairs. So it really is advantageous in that it provides expedited work authorization processes. It includes pre-stipulated types and amounts of mitigation. And the city has its own permittee responsible mitigation areas available to it. So it makes things, all the thinking has been done ahead of time. And it already includes authorization from the U.S. Army Corps and wildlife agencies to do some of the work. And the CEQA document was really the first of its kind. So there's a lot of really good stuff that this programmatic permit allows them to get out and do this maintenance, with a lot of the decisions already made. Now, there are a few limitations to the program. It's been around for a few years now, so the board does plan to work with the city, and we need to go back and redefine it based on some of the lessons that we've learned.
Mm,
Not all areas in the city can be maintained each year. We talked about that. They're only budgeted for 4, so hopefully that can be addressed. And the pre-stipulated mitigation, it doesn't cover all the work. Therefore, other mitigation can be tough to find, especially in San Diego. Not only the city, but the region at large. Much of our areas we're running out of areas where mitigation can be done, and that's challenging everybody, not only the city of San Diego. Sometimes the wildlife agencies can have additional requirements on top of what's authorized. That's a
mm,
challenge. And then maintenance, it really only restores that original design capacity, which I mentioned as a limit, as one of the reasons why such extreme flooding occurred. The channels are too small for the developed land that it's looking to serve. So,
okay. So yeah, the sizing is an issue as well. So, hopefully we can do something in San Diego to get some more money into the stormwater department to, help with these things. But I could see a big challenge if they're already undersized, making them larger, you're cutting into people's property, and that's definitely a challenge as well.
correct.
I'd see
Yeah.
that as a major problem. So, well, I really appreciate your time today. This has been very educational for myself and hopefully for our audience as well. Thank you so much for joining and providing the information, and we'll hope to have you back sometime in the future. Thank you so much, Laurie.
I'd like that. Thank you for having me, Sean.
You bet. Thank you.